Hey, Justin Dyson Apiaries. Today we're going to be setting up a couple queen castles. May do a nuke or two, but just kind of showing you that strategy, how to get enough bees in there, what kind of brood to look for, and setting up the resources appropriately. You could use this strategy for actually rearing queens, or maybe you just found a queen cell and you want to have an extra queen in your apiary. So stick right with us. So what I'm going to be working with here is a 4-compartment queen castle. This uses standard deep length straw frames. There are a couple different variations of this, and some are 3-compartment, and actually with these there's a divider that comes out. I'm going to take these lids off. By the way, I've drilled holes and put screen in there, so if I do have to feed these queen castles, I can with a jar feeder. I have a piece of screen there. So these dividers will come out. They kind of get glued in, but so if we wanted to run a 4-section, 4 frame, we could do that, or we can run a full 10 frames. We can take these out. These queen castles have an entrance on each side. So this entrance for this compartment, this entrance for this, and so on and so forth. So what I'm going to kind of talk about is so I use these rear queens that have been grafted, but maybe you're in one of your colonies and they're thinking about swarming or something like that. You could actually take that frame that has a good queen cell on it and start up a couple little queen castles with a couple queen cells, and then you have some spare queens if you have an emergency situation in your apiary, or maybe you just want to requeen some with some young queens. So this is a great tool to have in your apiary. You could also just run 5-frame nukes if you wanted to. Similar setup, just a little more resources. I use these queen castles because the frames and everything are uniform. If you're doing queen rearing, you may choose to use the little mini frames or something of that nature. This is just what I use in my apiary. The disadvantage of it, it does take a lot of resources to start up, a lot of bees to fill that compartment, so that we don't get chilled brood and all that good stuff. So there's good and bad to every method. So they are really easy to manage through the summer dearth, though, as opposed to the mini mating nukes. Sometimes they get a little tough. They get hot in those little boxes, and sometimes they get robbed and things like that. So hive beetles are a pain in those mini mating nukes, but they're still a really good tool depending on how you're running your operation. But the focus of today is just saying, I found a queen cell and I want to start up a mating nuke. To have me a spare queen. So we're going to jump in this colony and I'm going to kind of show you how we set that up. First things first, anytime you're doing this, I recommend that you keep the nuke closed up for 24 hours if you can keep them somewhere cool, not out in direct sun or that kind of thing. If you don't keep them closed up for a good period of time, they will kind of drift between the sections. Say I started up all 4 of these, the bees in here might go to here, and the bees in here might go to here, and you end up with one compartment that's completely full of bees, and some of the other ones don't have enough bees to sustain themselves. So if you keep them closed up for 24 hours, it seems to kind of keep some of that from happening, and they do a little better with staying put. So what I do, you can use duct tape or whatever you want to do, but I just use a piece of painter's tape and I close up all 4 entrances. Make sure that tape's taped on there really well. That's some old queen cups from last year that fell down on the bottom.
Decent little colony of bees here, rearing a lot of drones, getting ready for the season. So, as I was talking about, maybe you went into a colony and you lifted up that top box and you found some queen cells hanging down off the bottom. It would be a great opportunity to do. Take a few of those queen cells and start you up a few queens, and then later on in the year, if you have a queen problem or you want to requeen, you have your own queens available. And if the queen cell fails, just combine the frames back with something else. But it's always nice to have a couple of those laying around. I will say that if you're moving queen cells into another box, you need to be kind of gentle. You don't want to shake that frame. There's a period of time in the pupa life, the pupa stage of life, that larva is really sensitive, and it can fall away from the royal jelly. And if it does, that pupa or the larva that's in there will die and not pupate. So you need to kind of keep that still. Don't flip it upside down and everything else, because you really don't know the age of that. Once they're at about 14 or 15 days, they're not near as fragile, but you don't know a lot of times when you're finding a swarm cell, for instance. I'll be using grafted queen cells to put back in these tomorrow, so I'm starting up these nucs for tomorrow. One of the things I like to do is I like to find kind of a small patch of brood. I don't want a what they call a brick brood. I mean a brood brick, because that just takes more resources to keep all of that brood warm. Just a frame of honey there. This colony's not super strong here, but we're going to get one queen castle off of this one, just to kind of demonstrate here. Like this frame here is not terrible. I like to have capped brood. I don't like to put a bunch of larvae or eggs or something in these, because I don't want them to have to feed them, because we're starting with a small amount of bees here. This capped brood here will be emerging soon, and that allows them to kind of build their population quickly. Additionally, like this is a great frame, honestly. It's not a huge patch of brood. It's not a huge patch of brood, but it does have brood. It has a little bit of pollen, and it has a little bit of honey. Pollen, honey, mostly all sealed brood. So this is not a bad frame to use. It's got a bad spot in the comb there, but it's okay for these queen castles. Not gonna hurt anything. So you see the amount of bees on there. That's really not. It's really not enough bees to protect that amount of brood. So what we have to do is we have to give them a little extra. So the way I start these up, if I can find a frame like this that has some honey on it, that's great. And what I'll do is I'll shake another frame of bees in here, put this frame in, and put one empty drone frame. And that seems to be sufficient. When that new queen emerges, she has somewhere to lay. And over time, you can actually, these queen castles actually make you some bees that you can take away to do other things with. So if I find the queen, great. If I don't, I feel pretty comfortable with looking these frames over and making sure the queen's not there. But you know, it'd be a good idea to find the queen, just to make sure you don't move her over into this queen castle. So like this frame here is not a great choice because it has a lot of larvae on it, and we don't want those bees to have to feed. One shake of bees, and then we're going to put this frame in, and I didn't bring an empty frame. So now I have a frame of brood with the bees on it, small frame of brood with some resources. And I've shaken one extra frame of brood in there. So now I'm going to put one empty frame. And I'm going to close them up. That queen castle's done. For the sake of demonstration, let's go ahead and do one other one. Make sure my queen's not on this frame. It's actually not a good choice. There's no honey. Here's a frame with a little bit of honey in it and some emerging brood. Now this frame has a good amount of bees, so I'm still going to shake some extras, but not quite as many. One thing I like to do here is when it's still cool, I'm gonna go ahead and get these closed up, but I'll talk through it. When we still have some cool weather, I like to put the brood frame for these two sections against each other with the divider between, and that just helps those two colonies kind of create the heat together, and takes a little less work. So the same thing would go for this side. We would put these two together. Doesn't matter after we get a little warmer. Put an empty frame back in there. That queen will jump over there and lay on that. So what we have here now is we have a frame of brood and an empty frame in each one. Frame of brood, empty frame, and that frame of brood has some nectar and some pollen on it, so the colony's not going to starve. One of the reasons that we do that, I like to put some honey in there. I mean, we could technically feed them, but in a little queenless split like this, a lot of times when they're queenless, they're prone to get robbed. They're not well organized, and so I don't like to feed them right off the bat. I like for them to get a queen first, and then if I need to, I start feeding. So that's one of the reasons I do that. You don't have to. You can feed if you didn't have anything to put in there. So that's kind of the way we set up a queen castle. Same would go for splitting off a little 5-frame nuke or something. If we were doing that, you know, we would just put a few more bees. You can start up with 1 frame of brood in a little queenless nuke. And put a queen cell with them, and that's okay. You know, it's just going to, of course, take a little longer to get built up. So think about the bigger space too. They have to kind of heat somewhat. So I usually put a few more bees with a 5-frame nuke. So typically, if I'm doing a 5-frame nuke, I'm going to do 2 frames of brood, empty frame against the wall, and then a frame of foundation. So it will be empty frame, brood, foundation, honey. That's typically the way I start up my nukes, and then a couple shakes of bees. That's a quick and easy way, and then I put a queen cell in them a day later. So that's kind of the same scenario as I did here, but just a little tweak to it. So that's how we start up queen castles. So again, these are great tools to have in your apiary. Like I said, if you found a swarm cell in there, use that swarm cell to your advantage and get you some queens going for the year, so that you'll have some. Maybe your hive ends up swarming and they end up queenless at the end of it. Well, if you did that split ahead of time, that little split with those right queen cells, you may have a queen mated by the time you realize that your main colony came up queenless, and you can introduce that queen and you're golden, right? You still make honey that year. You know, ripe queen cells if you're grafting or doing some other method, or swarm cells, great way to have extra queens in your apiary.
hope this was helpful. Like, share, subscribe, and let me know if you have any questions or comments. Thanks for watching.